God, where are you? God, why are you so silent? God, can't you see the violence that's going on out there? God, can't you see the injustices that's happening all around us? Ever ask those questions? Well, in the Old Testament, there was a prophet called Habakkuk who asked those very same questions. And God didn't answer him the way Habakkuk wanted. This is how God answered. He said, "You wouldn't believe what I'm up to behind the scenes if I told you." And then he said, "The just shall live by faith." Wow, what amazing answers that are so relevant to today in our culture and what we see in the decline of the West. Friends, be encouraged that despite all that, God is at work behind the scenes. We don't fully know what He's doing. He's not telling us everything what He's doing. He doesn't have to. Why? Because we live by faith. What's faith? Faith is the evidence of what you see in the Spirit. Faith is living out of the revelation that God has given you of Christ by His Spirit and Word. In chapter 3, we see this amazing prayer by Habakkuk, how he encourages himself. But we can be informed of how to pray in our current culture. He starts with, "In the midst of the years, revive your work." What a great prayer. In the midst of this mess in the West, Lord, revive your work. Then he said, "In wrath, remember mercy." And then he goes on to talk about the victory of God over spiritual forces. He talks about mountains bowing down, which back then referred to spiritual forces. God is greater than any of those high mountains, than those high spiritual forces. They will bow down. They will be subject to God. Then he talks about that God has His own chariots and horses. That refers to God's power and authority in the midst of enemy attack. God will be victorious. God is victorious. Then he talks about God's bow is made ready. And that's like God is shooting arrows of conviction into people's hearts. And into the church, He's shooting arrows of His Word and His Spirit and strength and encouragement. And then Habakkuk finishes with a song, because it looks like Habakkuk was a musician. He says, he sings, "Though the fig tree does not blossom, though there be no fruit on the vine, though the olive tree fail, though there be no herd in the stall, yet will I rejoice in the Lord. I will joy in the God of my salvation. God the Lord is my strength. He will make my feet like deer's feet in the high hills." See, Habakkuk encouraged himself by faith. He took on board that God said, "Trust me. I know what I'm doing." And that's the same with us today. We can have faith that God knows what He's doing. And therefore, even though we see the decline of the West, and in some cases, the church being sick in some places, in parts, we can rejoice in the Lord. We can rejoice in the God of our salvation. Even though we see what we see with our natural eye, we're going to live by faith, live by what He says. He is our strength. Not just that He strengthens us, but He is our strength.